There you go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the September meeting of the Howard Astronomical League, better known as HAL, H-A-L. Thrilled to have you here today. Hope everybody's been getting some good observing in. We had a nice run for a couple of weeks of some clear weather, so we had a lot of impromptus and things were great. As you can see behind me, I have lots of Televue eyepieces set up here, and that's in honor of our guest speaker and presenter, Al Nagler, who we're thrilled to have, and we'll be introducing Al in a little while. But in the meantime, we have some of our normal stuff to get through first. And as we always start out, by me having to click on the correct screen. There you go, a little astro humor, a few of them for you to take in there today.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, come for the cartoons.
Okay, so and if you're not on mute, mute yourselves, please. And then if you have something you want to ask or contribute, just jump right in. I see everybody laughing silently. And I'm always happy to receive any astro humor from any of you to add into the presentation. After doing this for 3 years, it's getting harder and harder to find fresh stuff. But and so once again, I'd like to welcome everybody. And do we have any new members on, or first-time members joining us today? Just raise your hand, unmute yourself. Jason, go ahead.
Just joined, live over here in Ellicott City, and just became a paying member last week.
Very good.
My first star party, and brought my telescope out. So
Yeah.
What
kind of telescope do you have?
It's a Skywatcher Heritage 150, so the collapsible Dobsonian. Bring it with us for camping and other stuff.
Very good. Well, welcome to HAL. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you.
And I saw somebody else raising her. Daniel, you have to unmute.
Yeah, we've been to a few star parties, Zach and I. Say hi, Zach.
Hi.
Hi. So we've been to a few star parties. This is our first meeting.
All right, well, welcome. We're very happy to have you. Any other new members, first timers? Any guests that are joining today? Jerry? Hey, Dave, you want to unmute for a second? There you go. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here. Great to see some of you again, see some of you for the first time. Friend of David's, used to live in the US. I realized with some alarm that was almost 20 years ago now, but it's always good to be back and with friends. So nice to see you.
That's great to have you here. Thank you very much. Anybody else who's a guest? If not, we'll keep on moving on. Welcome, everybody. I'm very excited to, well, one is to announce to everybody that our own Hannah, you could put your picture back up there, is taken on the role and the responsibility for being our new chairperson of publicity. And so let's give everybody, Hannah, a big thank you very much. Hannah's been doing a great job with social media. She'll be coming up there. Hannah, do you like your chair there? So it's very Star Trek-y. And I want to thank Joel for all his years of service in handling this and helping to get us where we are because of his efforts. And he's now passed the baton on to Hannah. So thank you, Joel, and thank you, Hannah.
It's a sweet chair.
So, also, as I always say every month, that I can't do this alone, and I don't do this alone. And one of the reasons that the primary reason we're so successful is because of all of the volunteers who take on different responsibilities and host events and keep everything moving and keep me knowledgeable about what needs to be done. So here's your leadership team. And are there any reports from anybody that anybody would like to say, fill in anything, Victor, on the observatory that you want to let everybody know about?
No, the observatory is working well. I've ordered some new USB cables, but that's not going to get anybody too excited.
There you go. Anybody else? I know if Bob was on, Bob couldn't make the meeting today. I don't think Bob Tilly. he'd be telling you, and reminding everybody that we have the library inside the observatory with over 300 items. And all you have to do is go into the library and check it out. It's on the honor system, and the checkout sheet is hanging on the racks. Okay, nothing else. Over to you, Hannah. Talk a little bit about what's going on with social media. It doesn't have to just be Instagram.
Oh, geez, putting me on the spotlight 2 times within 5 minutes. Lots of
Yeah,
pressure.
well, that's my job.
For those who don't know me, I'm Hannah. I'm the Instagram chair, and of like 48 hours ago, also the publicity chair. So I'm really excited to continue to spread the word about all the work that HAL's doing. If this is your first meeting and you've been to a few public star parties, I've probably met you, so good to see you again. Just, you know, your monthly reminder to please continue to submit to the HAL Instagram. It can be, you know, data you have, final images, setups, wide field, deep sky, planetary, videos, just really anything, sketches, drawings, really anything that, you know, makes you feel inspired by going out and seeing the stars when you can. So, and being a part of HAL. So, yeah, please continue to do that. I ran our first paid marketing campaign, and that got us about, I think, 50 new followers on Instagram. So, and just a lot of new visitors. I don't want to quantify everyone, but it's really good to, you know, continue to build this community where we can. So thank you again for the board and for all the members who submitted, you know, your photography and your art. Please continue to do so.
Thank you, Hannah. And we're getting to the end of the calendar year here, and we're also winding down on our planned star parties. So coming up on the 24th is the next members only star party. And once these are all at Alpha Ridge. And then on October 1st, we have the public star party, which is also the International Observe the Moon night. And Michelle, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. If you could unmute, just tell everybody a little bit about what you're going to do for International Observe the Moon night.
So I'm going to be bringing a bus of high school students, 10th through 12th graders. About 34 have signed up. Might be down 30. Let's just say 30. It's still a week out. They can still sign up next week if I have enough space. And parents are coming. And I'm going to have 2 separate activities going on. One is called Touchdown Lunar Lander, and I'm going to have all the materials available for kids to create a lunar lander. It's out of a cup. They tape it to a platform that we cut out, and then they have straws they can cut and tape, and they use marshmallows. Those are the astronauts. They stick them in the cup and they drop the cup from a certain height, and hopefully the astronauts won't fall out of the cup because they've put things underneath to help cushion the landing, and they'll survive the trip. And then I have some really nicely printed pictures of the surface of the moon from NASA that I can bring along. So that's one activity. The other activity that I like to do on International Observe the Moon night is the moon phase Oreo cookies. So I have a bunch of Oreo cookie packs that are like 6 cookies, and I have some basic paper plates and copies of the activity. I have copies of the Touchdown Lunar Lander too. And we're gonna have students available to help the kids create the lunar phases using knives. You know, they'll open the cookies because they can touch their own cookies, plastic knives, and they'll make the phases. And we'll have copies of what they look like, and people can talk about, you know, what the phases mean or if there's questions. And the third thing would just be the telescopes. The school, my school, has been very lucky in a lot of donations, some from members of this club. And I'm going to bring some of those telescopes and have my students kind of set them up and point them at some of the objects in the sky. And so there's going to be 3 rotations or 3 sections. I've got 30 kids, so they won't be working the whole time. they'll have some time to walk around and go to the observatory and to look around at the different telescopes that are out there.
Very good. All right, well, thank you very much, and thanks for doing the program for International Observer, the Moon Night. And the last thing on the calendar coming up is on September 25th over at the Robinson Nature Center between noon and 5 is their, and I'll get an email out to this, is their annual open house. And we always participate with the solar telescopes up on the green roof out in front there. So I'll put out an email looking for volunteers to come out with your solar scopes, and it's always a crowd, especially if the
What
sky
day
is
was that?
clear. So I'll get that email out for the Robinson Nature Center event on Sunday, the 25th, daytime. All righty. Here's a notification. There was an impromptu last night, and Cheryl saw the sign, and so there's Alpha Ridge, where the observatory is going to be closed for hunting season on certain days. So on the dates that you see on this, and we'll get a notification out, even though it's only from dawn until noon, it's just best that we probably just stay away completely on those days. So nobody's sitting there wrapping up at dawn when the hunters start showing up with their rifles. So that would be just not a good thing. So it's definitely not a good thing for the deer, but we don't need any of you guys out there either. So I'll get a notice out that, and I don't know what that means for, we're almost guaranteed clear nights now for these days, for these times. But I don't know if there's anything going up on the field around Carr's Mill or not. So maybe drive by and take a look and see if there's a sign there.
And if you do go out, make sure you don't bring your telescope antlers.
That's right. Okay. Steve, you on?
Yes, I'm on.
So Steve is our Astronomical League coordinator, better known as an LCOR, or known as an LCOR. And I would like to turn this over to Steve to make an award.
Yes, I want to give a shout out to one of our members who has completed the Astronomical League's Messier observing program. He observed all 110 objects, for which he got that certificate that you see on the screen there, and also a lapel pin. So kudos to Ian Slepian. His name is also mentioned in the reflector in their observing awards section. If you look under the Messier certificates, his name will appear there. So Ian, you are now a published astronomer. And FYI, there's also a section in our website for all the Astronomical League awardees, and his name appears there also. So again, congratulations, Ian. Nice job.
Thank you very much.
Any acceptance speech you'd like to make? Anybody you'd like to thank?
Well, sure. I'm terrible with the directions. That's why it took me 20 years to do this. So the Herschel 400 is probably only going to take 80 years. So, but it was worth it.
Very good. Well, congratulations.
When he submitted his observations, he saw a lot of the objects 3 or 4 times, but he missed one. So I made him go back and observe that one, and held him back for a couple months. But he persevered and managed to get it. So again, kudos, Ian.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So for everybody, the Astronomical League has great programs, and they're fun to do, and they can keep you busy for years. So if you want more information, get a hold of Steve, go to the Astronomical League website, and it's all there. And as many of you know, I don't know, Jared, are you on? So Jared's not on, but Jared and the Discord group have their monthly program going on where they choose an object of the month, and then of all the people that submitted objects and are part of this group, they vote amongst themselves on who got the best image of that selected object. It's always a 1 month in arrears in this meeting because we have to wait for it to be completed. And the August picture of the month goes to Jared Case. And you can see this beautiful picture that he put together of the Vale Nebula. So congratulations and absentee to Jared. So if you see Jared, make sure you let him know we had a shout out for him. And now, what we've been waiting for, there's two things that you were looking forward to, was one, to me to stop talking, and two, to bring on Al. So I could give Al a really great long introduction, except that's kind of what his presentation's about. So I would like to say this, though, that I would challenge anybody to find somebody whose name is better known worldwide in the amateur and possibly even the professional astronomy world when it comes to technology, optics, and everything else like this. Al's been doing this for a very long time, and he's going to get into all of that. But, you know, he's impacted all of our lives when it comes to astronomy. I don't know that there's anybody here that has not looked through Al's optics, been around Al's optics, or owns many of his optics. And it's quite an honor for us to have you here, Al, and to be presenting to us. I'm just going to read this first little part that we put on the web, and then we'll turn, and then I'll go right into your slides. Al put his lifelong love of amateur astronomy to work as a professional optical designer in 1958. But it was his involvement in designing NASA lunar landing simulators, as seen in the movie Apollo 13, that most directly influences Televue products of today. Al wanted his own observing equipment to deliver that seemingly limitless vista created for the astronauts, producing wide, full field sharpness and high contrast images are the keys. But the real story here is Al's story itself, and he's going to share that with us today. So Al, on behalf of all of us at HAL, we're thrilled to have you, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. Okay.
Ready to go.
Okay, ready to go. So here's the title. I thank my lucky stars. If you don't mind, I'll read through the titles as we go forward. So how a kid from the Bronx with a love for astronomy went on to create optical systems that bridged astronaut training with products to enhance the visual impact of our wondrous universe. On the left is me and my high school telescope. On the right is my patent on the Nagler eyepiece. In the middle, you see the LEM cockpit with the triangular window inside. So now, if you can go to the next slide. So this came out of an Australian astronomy magazine. And as I say here, the capture is not true. Growing up in the Bronx, we eliminated ants by dropping pink Spalding rubber balls on them. We didn't do it this way. So that's not where my optics started. Okay, next. Okay, so one more. Okay, let me get it up here a little bit. Bottom isn't quite showing.
Okay, I'll go back to the other sides.
All right, but I think okay, good. So my father took me to the Hayden Planetarium when I was about 12 or 13 years old, where I joined the Junior Astronomy Club and made this model of the 40-inch Yerkes Observatory refractor for their museum exhibit, which was attached to it was in the Hayden Planetarium attached to the Museum of Natural History. So that's my model. And okay, next, yes. So I passed the test at the Bronx High School of Science, and they had a special class there on where you could do anything you want in the shop. I think it's called Scientific Techniques Laboratory. So I ended up building, because I had small little refractors, I built an 8-inch reflector, which got me the Shop Award at graduation. This is the article that it also got me to be able to write for Mechanics Illustrated on its design and construction. This article is in the December 1955 issue of Mechanics Illustrated. So that was key, because I eventually later on, after I graduated, well, let's go to the next one. Okay. So after school, this is just a picture of my shop teacher, Charlie Caffarella, and his wife. And by that time I had started Televue, and that's one of our Renaissance telescopes, which I gave him as a gift. But the idea is, because I wrote that article, and because there was a optical company in the Bronx called Ferrand Optical, which had articles on telescope making by, what's his name? It'll come to me in a minute. But anyway, there's articles in Sky and Telescope. And because of that, I was reading Sky and Telescope all the time. And because I knew he worked at this optical company, I decided, with some experience already in drafting, to apply for a job there. And that's how I got into Ferrand Optical with all the projects that I was involved in. So let's go on. So before I get into all my work at Ferrand, we'll look more at what I did with the telescope. I rebuilt it a little bit. This is a picture of it at Stellafane. Where at Stellafane, has anybody been to Stellafane? It's where amateur telescope making started in the United States. So in 1958, I got third prize for this, and that kept my enthusiasm going. All right, next slide. So Stellafane features an observatory in the clubhouse and hosts thousands of amateurs at annual conventions. Look at the size of that amateur telescope with a man walking up the tube.
No.
Anyway, couldn't resist. Anybody been to Stellafane? Well, okay. And then at Stellafane, here's the world's first radio telescope shown at Stellafane. See the eyepieces at the right, the objectives on the left. He built it into a radio. So, you know the expression, boys gotta have fun. So that's how we do it. Now, here's a picture of my wife, Judy, and how I upgraded my 8-inch telescope to high school telescope to a 12-inch. And I took an 80-minute film exposure with plus X film of the double cluster taken with that scope. And that started my photography interest and the deep sky, and kept going on from there. So thank goodness that worked out nicely. Next. Okay, so there's a detail about that scope. So that got me first prize at the convention, and a picture of this in Sky and Telescope in 1972 was definitely appreciated. I put a perforated diagonal in the telescope, so the equivalent of a 5-inch aperture would go to a tracking eyepiece section where I could view, and the equivalent of a 10-inch aperture would take the picture. And that's how I got that other picture of that double cluster. Okay, next. So now, here's my son, David, my daughter-in-law, Sandy, reading Hewlin Fleming, who's not only an amateur astronomer and an artist. And I saw his artwork on astronomy, and I commissioned him to paint a family portrait at my favorite place in the world. Next. And there it is, the family portrait at Stellafane in 1989. So lining up for the family viewing from right to left, you have me. That's a telescope, or a family cat. Judy, my daughter Merrill, her husband Michael Budnick, and there's David and Sandy. And there's, you can see the observatory in the background. So I have this painter on this original painting right here in the office I'm sitting at. And I gave him as a commission one of my 4-inch telescopes. But I mean, this is artwork. So next. Now you meet some interesting people with cellophane over the years. I met Clyde Tombaugh, the discoverer of Pluto. You talk about meeting classical, magical times with magical people. This is the way it happens. Next. Okay, so 1957, it's 2 years after I graduated, let's see, high school, I graduated in 55. I was already a draftsman. I had a lot of jobs in drafting. And by the way, if anybody wants to see my complete biography that I worked on with Michael Backage of Astronomy Magazine, go on our website and look up the name of the article. Is called The Life and Times of HAL Nagler, and just put that on our website where it says search, and you'll get the complete article. And it tells a great deal of background that I love to tell, including the 3 times I was fired from jobs. Which not many people like to talk about. So anyway, so imagine I after a year, you know, Earl Brown was the name of the guy I was thinking of, who wrote the Gleanings for ATM section at Sky and Telescope. So anyway, they hired me and I worked for a year as a draftsman. And then they asked me if I wanted to join the optical design department. Well, of course, that's a dream. Imagine a Bronx kid with a Bronx optical company. And now I could design all kinds of things. And I'll tell you some of the things I designed as we go along. But imagine one day when the boss comes to me and says, hey, we got a new project. How do you like to design the visual simulators for a Gemini and lunar module program that train our astronauts for lunar landing? Didn't take me long to accept that project. So this is a model of the LEM lander. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Next. Okay, so here's the view inside the simulator, looking through one of the lunar module triangular windows. Well, what do they want to see? They want to see the stars, the heavens for tracking, and they want to see the surface of the moon when they get down there. So the simulator has to do all of that. And that's a pretty interesting job and pretty challenging.
Hey, Victor's got a question.
Next
Go ahead,
picture.
Victor.
Yeah, I had a question. Those early days and working in the design group there in the Bronx.
Yeah. So I was working for Martin Schenker. He was the chief designer, and he also graduated Bronx High School of Science. So he appointed me to this.
What kind of tools did you use to do your design? What
kind of what?
What kind of tools were you using?
Oh, at that time we only had we had simple computers. This was before the current day, so we had to go on a manual computer and type 10 digital data points for every point in the computation. So it was a little challenging, but I learned the process. So can we go on to the next slide?
Yes, there we go.
All right. So this is the outside of the simulator, which had a big triangular lens that went up against the triangular window of the LEM. So this is like a gigantic eyepiece, the simulator. It's projecting the stars and the lunar surface, whatever you put on the other side of the simulator, right into where the astronaut is looking out the window. So this is quite an interesting project. I used to title this presentation, Giant Eyepieces That Swallow Spacecraft, as you'll see in the next picture. Okay, so, well, this is a little more present. Here we have myself, my boss, Marty Schenker at Ferrand. This is after we long retired from Ferrand. This is recent. And Matt Baum, an electrical engineer who I went into business with after I left Ferrand. But here we're starting in front of part of the Apollo Lunar Module Simulator window that's being restored at a museum called TechWorks in Binghamton, New York. And you see the triangular lens of the simulator right between myself and Marty Schenker. So unfortunately, a couple of years ago, Marty Schenker passed away, but that's life. So yeah, so this is the picture of the entire simulator in front of, outside of where the astronaut is sitting inside looking through the window. And that, as I mentioned, is my original title for this presentation. So next. So here's the principle of the simulators. We'll get into it a little bit. It uses the idea of a giant eyepiece in reverse. So it takes a mirror to project an image from a 36-inch spherical television screen or celestial sphere to project that out to infinity. And you can see in the diagram how what comes off the TV screen or the celestial sphere is collimated by the mirror, and it goes to an exit pupil. And that's the general principle. Now, these mirrors were 6 and 7 feet in diameter. So that was quite an interesting project. Next picture. So of course you had to use beam splitters to project the two different focal surfaces to the viewing location. So as an eyepiece, this is basically this doesn't show the whole optical system, but it shows the principle. So you have the two focal surfaces, you have a beam splitter in between and the spherical mirror, and the observer's outside here. So that's the way you get the picture of both the star field and what's off the television screen. Now, as an eyepiece, this is what the specs would be. Field of view, 110 degrees. Eye relief, 1 foot. Exit pupil, 1 foot. That's a hell of an eyepiece. Okay. Next slide.
Well, that even exceeds the 31 here.
Huh? What?
That even exceeds the 31 here.
Yeah, it even exceeds the 31 Nagler. Yeah, so anyway. So now here's the complete optical layout showing the mirrors, the eyepiece mirror. So this is the eye point inside the capsule. This is the triangular window at the pupil plane, okay? Here's the one input, the celestial sphere, which I'll show you in detail in a minute. This is the TV input, which my electronics guy at Ferrand made a custom big spherical screen on the TV input. So you had the celestial input reflecting off the celestial sphere relay, the TV input reflecting off the relay mirror relay. They both go through beam splitters and they combine over here to go through a correct lens to the eyepiece lens, which gives us the 110 degree view through a beam splitter out through that triangular window. So that's the complete layout. And in fact, one of the reasons I decided to write the article on the life and times of HAL Nagler for Astronomy Magazine is they agreed to print the layout of the simulator, this picture, okay, which was never shown in any public publication that I knew at the time. So that's one reason why I wrote that. But you want to get to read that because you have a lot of fun with that.
So Al,
Any questions about the simulator?
yeah, so Al, so we know the lunar missions were successful, with the exception of Apollo 13 that had a different problem. But
Yeah.
did you get any feedback after the mission that of
Yes,
the
yes.
astronauts
And
that said the
I'm
simulator
going
was
to read it. I'm going to read you some of that in a moment. I
okay?
have a piece of paper here. Okay. So there's a book on the called Just Like the Simulator. The author is the curator of the National Air and Space Museum's Apollo spacecraft collection, who wrote about the simulators in her book, Apollo to the Moon, which was in National Geographic in 2018. She wrote this, quote, Apollo astronauts spent hundreds of hours training in these simulators in the months leading up to their missions. During each of the lunar missions, the astronauts inevitably compared the real experience of flying to the moon to the virtual experience that they had encountered during training. The phrase, quote, just like the simulator, can be found in the transcripts of every Apollo mission. Excuse me, I just got goosebumps reading that. And then it says on page 73 there, perhaps most memorably, the mission simulators helped save the flight crew of Apollo 13 after an explosion disabled all major spacecraft functions. So I guess it seemed to work. And as an amateur astronomer, I wanted to make sure it worked by giving them the best possible views. And that's how the interface of that led to all my design thinking and developments in astronomy. So let's go to the next picture. So here we have the 3-foot diameter black aluminum sphere with 1,000 embedded ball bearings for stars to fifth magnitude with all different sized ball bearings. And I even secretly had the ball bearings for Betelgeuse, Aldebaran, and Antares gold plated as my amateur contribution. So I knew it would look more realistic if an amateur astronomer looked through the simulator. But there you can clearly see Orion in the middle and Sirius and Aldebaran and so on. So that was the simulator, and that was on ball bearings which rotated to match their mission position, you know, through the as they look through the window, and that gave them remarkable resolution and stars down to fifth magnitude. Next slide. So here's the principle of the artificial stars. And we use this today in testing our telescopes. Here's a little ball bearing. You have a small lamp, you light up the ball bearing, and what happens to the light? You position it so at the focus, at the surface of the big celestial sphere, you have a perfectly small ball of light. You have an image of the lamp forming a tiny reflected star coming off here. So that's the ball bearing star generator and spreading the light back toward the simulator mirror. So there we go with the 3-foot celestial sphere, the 1,000 embedded stars. And like I said, we use that today. Next. Okay, the next part is how do they actually land on the moon, train to land on the moon? Well, you have a type of camera called an optical probe. So they made a gigantic, well, you can see it, a 3D model of the landing site, which is up here. And then the optical probe camera sits in a vertical and horizontal controlled motion machine that moves it over the surface of the, and simulates the motion of the LEM as it's going across the field and landing, and including the height. So when it was a couple of miles up, this was further away. This actually moved down to 1/4 of an inch of the surface and showed a sharp field. So I didn't design this particular unit, but that gave me an input when I designed another one for Ferrand, which we'll go on to. But I think this shows you in the period before, computer image generation, what we had to do with models. But, as a kid, or practically a kid still, it was a marvelous total experience. Next slide. So another project I had a little later at Ferrand was designing an optical probe, 140-degree field for a more complex version of an aircraft training simulator that was made for Edwards Air Force Base in California. It's using the same general principles as the lunar module probe, except it's more complex because of the field of view and because of the fact that it has to get so close to the surface. So this is the actual optical probe. And what I'm going to do is show you a little bit about the design of that and how it worked. So let's go on to the next picture. So using tilting relay lenses, I don't know if you can see what I'm showing you in the middle here.
Where am I?
So you got two, relay 1 and relay 2. These two relays tilted. So normally you have with any camera, the image surface is perpendicular to the optical axis. But in this case, when you land and you're looking out on the lunar surface, the axis is parallel, right? The axis is parallel to the landing site, not perpendicular. So how do you put that into focus? Well, you do it with these relay lenses. In this particular case, for this probe, I used 2 relay lenses, yes. So there's a focusing unit with focusing lenses and mirrors going in and out, and these lenses pivot about the surface. And here's the objective. And so we'll get a little closer look of the front side of the objective in the next picture. Total of 45 lenses in this system. And the light actually got through it. So the objective lens is here. It has an exit pupil here. It goes through a negative lens to give a larger field for the 140 degrees. And that was the front end of the design. And when I saw that, I realized that that could be the inspiration of a really highly corrected wide angle eyepiece. And so you can see what it says here. The correcting lens near the focus led HAL Nagler to his dream years later. In 1977, along with his wife Judy, he founded Televue Optics to realize his goal of providing spacewalk eyepiece views through amateur telescopes. So that the combination of seeing everything I saw in the simulator and actually doing this somewhat similar optical project to the simulator, but just with a wider field of view, got me on the path to the Nagler eyepiece. And so the next slide. So now I'm going to show you how the optical probe, how it actually performed. So that's the optical probe model for the 140 degrees, the prototype. And because I like to design things, and paint things and do things, I made a model of an aircraft runway to scale. So there's an aircraft runway. So this shows this view through this simulator probe, just a probe of what that last picture was. I put a penny down, a 440 screw, paper grass. And this indicates close focus is about 1/4 of an inch off the surface. And notice the focus is sharp all the way straight ahead, parallel to the ground, which is essential for lunar simulation as well. So this, I think, gives real clarity to what the optics can do and what was really needed in order to imagine this. So you can imagine the simulator is going down, it's going onto the surface, and you're getting very close to the surface like this. Well, I'll tell you something a little funny about this here, because what would happen is NASA would besides training the astronauts to land on the moon, they demonstrate the simulator by putting people in the moon who were a little famous. So for example, they put in Lady Bird Johnson, who loved forestry, and they planted a tree at the landing site. Okay, so when it came down like this at this scale, imagine a tree would come out, she'd land, and there was a tree. Okay, when the president of France came, they planted a model of the Eiffel Tower in the landing site. So suddenly he was coming down on the moon, but he was see the Eiffel Tower. And the last thing, and I think the greatest thing, is because it shows the humor and what the astronauts were like. When Neil Armstrong did his first simulated lunar landing, his friends, the other astronauts in the program, they planted a live praying mantis at the landing site. You can imagine what that must have looked like. And so like I say, boys gotta have fun no matter how old they are, right? Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, now, in 2009, at the Stellafane convention, Alan Bean was the guest speaker, and he gave a wonderful presentation about his voyage on Apollo 12, fourth man at the moon. So there I am having meeting him for dinner, okay? And then I made up a booklet of like what you saw with the simulated diagrams and all of that stuff. But he didn't know anything about what was in the simulator. So I made up a booklet showing all those pictures and everything. And I handed him the booklet, and on the cover I wrote, "Dear Alan, glad it worked." So I've had a lot of very special moments in my life, as you can well imagine. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago now, but he was an incredible artist. And if you see his books, he did a lot of wonderful space art as a side career to what he did as an astronaut. Okay, so let's see what it says on the bottom. And this is the next one. All right, so now we go to what Televue does and how all of this affected us and what we do at Televue. So I started the company in 57 with my wife, Judy. I went to work with my friend, Matt Baum, who you saw. We started a electronics company making electronic motor brakes for machinery, for safety equipment. And but first, after I left Ferrand in 1973, I joined Keystone Camera Company. And for them, I designed a zoom camera lens, and they sent me to Japan to get it made. And I made friends with an optical company in Japan. And lo and behold, we still work with that company today in Japan. So that's how things happen you know, but in amazing ways. That's why the title of my talk is so meaningful. So here we go. So we hired, naturally, I hire a lot of amateur astronomers because you have to hire people who love what they do. So I hired Paul Delakai, who worked for us for about 37 years. I trained him in optical design, and he worked on a lot of projects, including the Ethos eyepiece. My son David came up with the name, to expand the eyepiece technology from the original Nagler to 100 and 110 degrees. That's why the 3.7, 4.7 Ethos are called SX, the simulator experience, 110 degrees. I pushed Paul, I said, Paul, get it up to 110. So we show him what the simulator looks like. And then I took one of the eyepieces and I put in a triangular window inside. So if I show you what the simulator looks like, if we have that eyepiece, you can see through that eyepiece what you see through the simulator. But here was the idea. I came up with this concept called the majesty factor, and I wrote this essay on our website. So here's the general idea. So you have the double cluster in this view with a 26 plusle and 50-degree field. Now you double the size of the field to 100 degrees. You have the same picture with a 13mm Ethos. What happened? You've got twice the resolution and a 4 times darker background in terms of contrast. So that's the majesty factor concept in what the what the larger field of view, a summary, finding out when I go to a conference or star party, and people are always saying wow about looking through the Nagler or the Ethos, and I say, I've got to find a reason why they're saying wow. So this is the reason.
Al, at the last couple of our impromptu star parties, and I think one was maybe a members only star party, I was using the 13 Ethos on my 105mm refractor, and it was definitely a crowd pleaser. There's some people who were on this meeting with us today that actually looked through it, and it was spectacular. And went back to it at least 3
Well,
times.
that's it, and it all came from my internal pressure generated by my experience in the space program. So you all probably read Cloudy Nights. So you look at the next picture. My sad regrets to the Queen who just passed, but I thought this was a very nice tribute that somebody suggested on Cloudy Nights to say what we've done. Okay, so let's go on here. Now, also about a long time ago, I started or worked on initially starting the Rockland Astronomy Club and setting up the Northeast Astronomy Forum. Has anybody visited that?
Yeah.
I think this is within our 30th year. It's the world's largest astronomy equipment show. And this is a picture from the 2015 forum. We usually have close to 100 exhibitors. We have usually a couple of thousand people. That shows the exhibit floor. In this particular case, and we give talks and so on. In this particular case, I wanted Neil deGrasse Tyson to come and give a talk. Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson told me, look, Al, I talked to my agent. It's so expensive, you can't afford to have me. And I'm willing to do it free by Skype. So here we are. That's me sitting there giving him a Skype interview at the conference. But that's what the kind of guy Neil deGrasse Tyson is. Love him. So anyway, we continue to do that. And so this is getting now to our last 2 current projects. 2019 was the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. And so I decided we should develop an Apollo 11 eyepiece. I wanted an 11mm eyepiece that had all the qualities of the simulator, every aspect. So it has plenty of eye relief, a big field of view, 85 degrees, very high correction, very high contrast. So I basically worked with my protege, Paul Delakai, and David. And every time we have a project like this, we have what we call a magic moment. When the prototype comes in and we all sit at a table, we look at the prototypes and say, well, how did it work? Well, if anybody's looked through it, I think we only made 300 of them as a project because we knew it was going to be a one-time project. They're all sold out and everybody agrees it's virtually top of the line. Unfortunately, much after this picture, a few months ago, Paul Delakai passed away, which is a great tragedy for us in our company and the history of design. I also had Paul design the Delos, which I named after the beautiful Greek island, right? But I wanted Del to be recognition of Paul Delakai in the project. And then we designed the lighter version of the Delos. So I could also have Paul's name kind of regarded in that situation. So that's where we were with the Apollo 11. And then in 2000, let's go back a minute. In 2016, there's a company called SWRI, Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio, 2,700 employees doing research in space. And in fact, they did the project that the spaceship that went past Pluto, New Horizons, that was their project. 2,700 people, enormous capability. And one of the top people in the science division said, look, we have a new project. He knew about the Nagler eyepiece. He said, I want HAL Nagler to design the lens for this project. And so in 2016, we started the project, and the project is called Punch. And in 2019, the same year of our making the Apollo 11, NASA selected that project for launch, having seen what we did on the prototypes and everything. So it's actually going to launch in 2025, and to explore how the sun's atmosphere interacts with the planetary medium. It's called the Punch. Polarimeter to unify the corona and heliosphere, and it's using optics developed and built basically by Televue. So that's going to be my first space mission. So that's going to come in a couple of years. So, but the lens for that is pretty unique because it's a small lens. It's like a camera lens, but it has a 50-degree field, has 11mm pupil and 13mm of eye relief. That's going to look out in space for the 50-degree field. And then they're going to put 4 small satellites with 4 of these lenses, with the sensors and everything, to circle the Earth and get these touching or confluent 50-degree fields to do all the research for the solar atmosphere. So next. Okay, so without getting into any further detail on that, an amateur astronomer called me one day asking me about eyepieces, and I asked him what he did for a living. And he said, well, I make night vision monoculars for the military. And I said, oh, that's interesting. When I was at Friend Optical, I designed the eyepieces for the ITT night vision goggles. when I was at Ferrand, I did a lot of other projects. Like I designed lenses for all kinds of purposes, including a backup lens for the, I think it's the 40-inch telescope in Washington. What's the size of the refractor? I don't remember right now. But anyway, so I said, that makes sense, but I hate the green phosphor. He says, well, now we have white phosphor. So he sent me one of these units, and there's a close-up picture of it. That's the PVS 14 night vision monocular. And to me, this could be a game changer. And in fact, when Dennis DeChico wrote the review of it, which is on our website, he said, versatility might make it a game changer in the world of amateur astronomy. The resulting night vision system, picked as one of the 2018 hot products in the last January's issue for S&T, proved to be the most impressive visual light amplifying setup I've ever used. So here it is. This is a little half-pound unit with a 40-degree field at 40-degree input to the objective, 1 power, 40-degree eyepiece. But because I developed the dioptrics to fit on top of so many of our eyepieces for people to correct your astigmatism without using glasses, many of our, great many and all of our current eyepieces have large tops and long eye relief, especially the Delight and the Delos, where the eye guards are adjustable between 10 and 20 millimeters. So this is what you can do with that. First of all, you can take this unit and with an adapter, put a filter directly on it, like a hydrogen alpha 6 nanometer filter at 1 power, and you'll see all of Barnard's loop with this at 1 power. Imagine that. So for deep sky, it's incredible. So now you put it on our eyepieces. I recently designed a modification to our 55 Plossl to make it a 67 millimeter Plossl, converting the 50-degree apparent field to 40 degrees, so it matched the 40-degree input of the night vision unit. So you get absolutely the most possible visual field of view with the night vision. And Richard Orr, if you're listening, I think you know what I'm talking about.
Hey, Richard.
So you can use this with eyepieces. Eyepieces actually from 67 millimeters down even to our 3 millimeter Delight that will fit the night vision. And on top, I made an adapter so you can use our phone mates to attach to the top and take images directly through it. And this is a picture I took of the comet Neowise in July of 2020 from my home here with a little 76 millimeter Apo with the 67 Plossl. And fortunately I had some trees in the way, so it gives you a perspective on that. And this is the kind of thing it's possible to do. So I thank my lucky stars. So we have new projects in night vision. We have the new projects with the units that's going, the Punch project that's going into space a couple of years. And I can't tell you what else we're working on, but you know, we're always thinking about things.
Hey, Al, so Richard's on. Richard, do you want to
Yes.
talk about it? Richard owns this product.
Yeah, I've had the product for over a year, and it really is a game changer for visual astronomy. I've used it on all sorts of telescopes, and like you said, it fits a variety of your eyepieces. And with the 6 nanometer hydrogen alpha filter, I have just loved it. And
thank you for contributing to our blog program, where we write up stories of what we and many of our customers do, what they like and even what they don't like. One of the one of the unique unrecognized advantages of this system is that you could put it on a 20-inch f3 Newtonian and use it because the central obscuration isn't seen by the night vision monocular. You can't put a 67 millimeter on a scope like that and have a 20 millimeter pupil, right, which has a 7 or 8 millimeter blocked out central obscuration. Don't work. So it doesn't work visually normally, but with night vision, you can do it all. And now you got a telescope that's gigantic in size, but not long. So you've got more field of view, more convenience. And with our paracore coma corrector, you haven't sacrificed any image quality. And so everything is like fitting together now with a lot of the things we've done. So I don't know, Richard, if you tried it with the reflector.
No, I haven't. I own an 18-inch reflector, but an obsession, but I haven't had it out on that. I've just had it on my refractors, 4.3 inch and a 6-inch. But I tell you, there's a world out there that I have yet to use it on. Anyway, thank you very much for developing this, the monocular. I use it all the time.
Great, thank you so much.
Hey, Steve, did you have something?
Yeah, I have a question. Al, I have one of these on order and I'm anxiously waiting to get it. But one of the discussions I had with Richard on this is how do you calculate the true field through this system?
Oh, it's simple because the true field is the field of view. Remember, you've got whatever eyepiece you're using, you know what the magnification is, but the field of view at 1 power, it's 40 degrees.
Right.
So
what if I have it on a 12 millimeter Nagler? What is
it doesn't matter. You're not using the 82 degrees. The unit will only show 40 degrees. That's why even you can use it with ethos. But what good is it if it's only going to see 40 degrees of the field of view coming through the pupil?
Yeah, but that's the apparent field. What's the true field?
Excuse me?
The 40 degrees, that's the apparent field through the system. What is the true field?
Then you can calculate what the true field is. It's like, what it means is this. You take example. This is like putting a 40 millimeter eyepiece. If you put a 40 millimeter field eyepiece, like a 40 plus in,
right,
you can figure out what the field of view is. In fact, just go on our website and look up the eyepiece calculator. So you get the true field and everything else. So the point is, you're always going to see 40 degrees of field coming out the end because it only accepts 40 degrees of field coming in. So no matter what the eyepiece apparent field is, you're only using 40 degrees of that. So if you have an 80 degree eyepiece, you're only using about half of that field.
You just divide.
But doesn't the true field?
The true field is the apparent divided by the magnification.
Yeah, but
So there's a magnification factor in there. So
well, you haven't changed the magnification. You got 1 power here and you have the telescope. Just the way you're using it.
yeah, but if I have it on my 31 Nagler, I get about 60 power. So is the true field the 40 degrees of the system divided by the 60 power?
Yeah, it's 40 degrees. Actually, it's roughly half the true field because you've got 82 degrees in the Nagler, but you can only use, it's only
using 40
allowed to go 40 degrees through.
Yeah,
it.
so the magnification doesn't enter into it?
No, it doesn't enter into it.
Oh, okay.
You got magnification and you got magnification 1 power. That's the whole idea. This is called afocal imaging. And for me, I did it because to me, that's a simple way. Some people try to take this apart and connect it directly to the telescope objective and so on. To me, that's complicated. To me, that's simple. You put an eyepiece in that works. You can get any magnification you want, and it just goes right on the telescope.
Okay,
And in fact,
thank you.
You could take the filter and put it on the front of the eyepiece or the front of the diagonal. You don't need this filter, this adapter, but all of these parts give you the potential of a complete application capability from 1 power, imaging, visual, to use with any telescope and virtually any of our eyepieces.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I gotta tell you, but it's quite spectacular. Richard has put his night vision device on my 5-inch refractor as well as my 4-inch refractor. And it's incredible. I know some of you have had the chance to look through it. I also have one on order and waiting. If Steve doesn't steal mine first, but
the time delays. They
I
have
told them
limited-
to cancel
limited
your order.
production, but they always have the highest quality. So, when you place an order, you don't put any money down. You don't have any responsibility until the unit comes in. It may be 1 month, it may be 2 months, it may be 3 months. We try to get them as soon as we can, but it's limited by our relationship to that manufacturer.
Yeah.
So thank goodness that manufacturer, his name is Victor Di Casola, the owner of the company, that he contacted me and loaned me one of the units. And boy, I said, I got to go forward with this project. Push the envelope. So that's what we're trying to do.
So for those of you who are having maybe a little bit of difficulty envisioning what this might look like if you haven't seen it yet, but if you were to take my 5-inch refractor of 130 millimeters, it becomes a 15-inch refractor by putting the device on it. So if you take your telescope, whatever the measurement is, you triple it, that's what you get. And it is amazing. So, hey, Al, I think that was the end of your, do you have another slide here? Yeah. There's your last slide.
Oh, okay, let's go to the last slide.
That's it.
I still take questions. So why be an amateur astronomer? It may be of no more practical use than a love of music, art, or nature's beauty. But understanding the history of our universe, knowing our place in it, seeing its wonders can be compelling and uplifting. After all, we are all made of star stuff and may be the only creatures that can appreciate its own place in the cosmos. Perhaps if all humanity were amateur astronomers, preserving our incredible planet would be an easier task. That's my message to the world.
Well, thank you very much.
And as part of that message, you can pass this along. I believe we should change the name of the day of the week to Saturn Day, which is what it is, because anybody who sees Saturn in a telescope gets hooked, right?
Right. So questions. I see some hands up. Go ahead, Bob. And then Shrikant after that. Bob, you want to unmute? Savoy?
No, that was a hand clap.
Oh, it was a hand clap. Sorry.
Thank you for
I'm
that.
not the emoji king.
Much appreciated. And by the way, we don't deal with emails. We have a telephone. We can answer questions, we can help, and it's much more effective by telephone. And even myself, my son who joined the company in '88, is very knowledgeable now with all of this. We still have other amateur astronomers who take calls. I'm often in the office, but not always. But there will always be somebody there to help you if you call us on regular time, 9 to 5.
Thank you. Arjun, go ahead, unmute. And then Jay next.
Yeah, so this night vision, how does it actually work? How is it able to triple your your telescope aperture? Because it seems very interesting and I'm not sure how you do it.
Could you explain that again?
He's asking how it, how it actually gives you the tripling of your telescope aperture.
Oh, we triple the aperture because of the electronic sensitivity of the night vision. I mean, it just, it goes up like,
Is that like dilating your eyes?
it's like dilating your eyes with your pupil. It's like just putting a bigger aperture at the front of your scope.
So
If you're seeing, you go a few magnitudes deeper, and with nebula objects, it's even greater when you use a filter. So, Richard, you can explore that a little more, but the idea is just the simplicity. You know, when you reach my age, you're not going to drag a telescope like this. We still have it in the office, but you're not going to drag a telescope like this or a 20-inch telescope out very easily. You want a small telescope. So on my porch out of my condo here, I just keep my TV 76. If I really get obsessed, I also have one of my old Televue 140 millimeter refractors. But the idea is I want everything to work well, and that's the concept. So that's why I went into refractors, because refractors, number one, you get rid of all the problems related to central obscuration. Number two, you can get with a fast speed, short focal length, very wide field. And with the kind of glass quality we use in our designs, which is equivalent to fluorite, okay, we eliminate essentially all color aberrations. So we've got the equivalent for a planetary telescope of a 15 or 20 inch in aperture. I mean, just I'm sorry, 20 F20, equivalent of an F20 for planetary in terms of color correction. But hey, what's the benefit of the long focal length? We have eyepieces that with our eyepiece, like a 3 millimeter, and Barlow lenses and power mates that can get you up to any power with any of our telescopes. So you can get it all in one in a simple telescope. And I like the idea of simplicity, where a telescope can be used for besides night vision, nature. Our TV-85 was rated by the Cornell Ornithology Institute as the best optics in the world for birding, okay? So that's a pretty good start. So the point is, you want a great telescope, astronomical wide-angle telescope, high-power telescope, telescope that can be travel easy, be used with night vision. You've got it all in almost any one of our telescopes.
Jay, you had your
Pardon me for being a salesman.
That's okay. Jay, did you have a question?
yeah, I have one more question.
Go ahead, Arjun.
So why does the picture look green, like the picture of the comet? Is the greenness an effect of the electronic amplification of the signal?
Yeah, it's more the signal. If you had an old night vision, it would be strongly green. But here it may just appear a little green. But try some of the other ones out among your club members, and you'll see what I mean.
Okay, thank you.
But basically, you have the sense of black and white, which to me is much more tolerable than green and white. I mean, green and black.
Anybody else have a question for Al? Well, you think about it, I have one more for you, Al. Going back to when you were doing the the simulator lenses, and you didn't have the ability of all the high power computer power that's available today. When you made the lenses and when you were testing them out, I don't imagine that they were all 100% successful on the first try. So how much effort was it, and how long was the period between doing your, creating the optics, testing it,
Well,
and going back and fixing it, and then doing it again?
okay, we have very little of that. The optics, the optical design, we know in incredible detail. We're working with manufacturers who have great capability, and most of them do work in photography and so on, and industrial. So it's very easy for us to check out an eyepiece. And if you didn't know, we do 100% inspection of every eyepiece, every telescope. Okay? The eyepieces we make in Japan that are sold in Japan have to come to our office first to pass the test, and then we ship them back to Japan. That's the standard we use. So it's very rare. Usually there's something in the design aspect we may not have realized. It's not usually a quality issue.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you very much. Anything else? Dwayne?
I think Jay is.
Jay?
Yep. Thanks, Phil. I somehow dropped off. I appreciate it. Al, thanks a bunch. I just got a quick question on your Ethos eyepieces, like the 13 millimeter. Can they be used for binoculars? They easily fit like in a Vixen type binocular?
Yes, the
Two of them?
13, the first, there's an example of a correction. The first 13 millimeter prototype we made at a certain diameter, which I just thought was comfortable, but it wasn't quite small enough to make it usable in binoculars. And so I trimmed down the OG in all of those sizes, with the exception of the very big ones like the 21 Ethos and so on. So from the 13 down, everyone will work in a binocular.
That's great. Thanks.
Wayne?
Yes.
And by the way, if you look on our, we have a specification page on the website. You can look there and it'll give you the dimensions of all of the eyepieces. So we try to give you all of the information, and even on eyepieces that are now deleted.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, Dwayne?
So
Okay.
look over the various articles. Some of the earlier articles that I wrote and written about me are more fun than detailed, but we have articles on every subject, and we have a constant flow of blog postings, as Richard Orr knows, because he's a contributor, and we think it's very interesting, very useful, very helpful. So we try to be as useful to the community overall as possible.
Great. So Al, I wanted to ask you, well, really, I wanted to tell you, the first time I looked through a Nagler, it literally was like, I'm looking through a window. It was the most amazing experience of my life. And the way you have been so modest with the way you see your idols, and you think that was the way it was back then. Yeah, you'd see them at the press releases, but we're seeing you virtually now, and this is kind of the way it is now. And I just want to say, I think from all of us, I think we'd all agree, we're not worthy. We're not worthy.
No, yeah, I think we're all worthy of the possibilities. Some of us may not either want to spend the money or think it's worth spending the money, don't have the money, but the money has never been a consideration for me. When I started out, I knew that, a perfect example, when I designed the original Nagler eyepiece, I said, who the hell's gonna buy a $250 eyepiece when eyepieces were selling for $25 at those times? So what I did is to make sure my business was gonna be successful. By the way, does anybody know why I named the company Televue?
No.
Because the first project I had is before I started the company. I was working with television. I built lenses that have field curvature correction for projection lenses in projection of slide projectors. So the first 3-4 years, that was mainly our business. But I knew someday the business would be big enough. I wanted to get into the fully into the astronomical. So the name Televue suits both. I know would suit both sets of conditions. So that's why the company's called Televue. But
That's awesome.
you know, we appreciate anybody's input, ideas, and and we do updates or if there's anything wrong with any instrument, whether it's an eyepiece or a telescope, we can always rebuild it. So I just want to do the same thing for the community that I know I would want myself. And it's always been, shall I say, my ethos. And that's the way it is. And of course, it is a family business. Judy was running the business for a number of years while I worked with the electronics company. Then finally, David, we waited for David to get the idea that he really want to join the company and I wouldn't have to beg him. So he finally came to that, I think in 1988 or so, and he's now the president and he's involved in everything. Maybe not in the details of the optical design, but every aspect of the company. And he remembers more than I could ever know about the applications. So you have enough people to speak to at the company if you want to get any help. So please enjoy our website, enjoy our products, keep enjoying astronomy. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share my stories with you. And
Thank you, Al. We all really appreciate it. I think I could sum it up any better than Dwayne did. So now we're gonna give your voice a break there, and we're gonna go into the images from that many of the people on this call have submitted from our
Right.
club and some others from our club and what they've done, as well as some other work. And so hopefully you'll enjoy those. I want to start out kind of with a big compliment to everybody here who's contributed these pictures, not only now but forever. I mean, think about what you're using and look at the quality that's here all of the time. I mean, in these images that you produce with the equipment that you have. Now look at what the James Webb Space Telescope's doing. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So if you were to take what you're doing and somebody was to give you $10 billion telescope, what you would be able to do with that, and if you were to take the same ratio and perspective, you'd blow it away. So, I mean, it's just amazing. When you submit these, I just really love looking at them and love showing them just as much. I'm going to blow up my screen again a little bit here, so hopefully Al can see most of it, if not all of it. And we're going to start out with Jim Lane. Are you on? This is some unique work that Jim does. He shares with us from time to time. Jim?
Thanks. Yeah, let's start with something that's radio, not optical at all, on the heels of Al's talk. But this is a plots. I don't know if some of you over the past couple of years, I've always tried to present meteor detections using TV broadcasts and bouncing signals off the ionized trails that they leave behind. And for about coming up on a year, maybe 8 months or so, I've been trying to get some Python code written to detect and count what you see there in the right hand corner. There's a gray, like a pepper gray and white trace. So this is what my radio systems here pull in, and those black streaks on the trace, those are meteor pings. So when meteors come through the atmosphere, they leave those traces behind. And over time, I finally have written Python code to automatically detect and count those black traces. And I finally finished it about a week ago. And those traces I record 24/7. I have thousands of them. Every 8 minutes, it takes a snapshot. And I was able to count the Perseid meteor shower. So from 21 July to September 1st, officially is the Perseid meteor shower. That top trace is an XY plot of all those black lines detected 24 hours a day. And you can see kind of in the middle of the screen there when they peak, and then towards the right, that hump on the right there of the middle cluster, that's the peak, the 12th and 13th of August. And then the plot below it is a zoom in of that time frame. So on the 12th and 13th, you can see the peaks it goes up. It looks like a roller coaster, up and down, up and down, up and down. The high parts of the morning, so about 2 to about 8 o'clock in the morning, is when we get the most meteors hitting the atmosphere. And then you can see it as the week goes on, and the higher and higher and higher, and then that just shows the peak there. And then in the middle of that lower plot, and then it kind of trails back off. So this is something that's been a passion project. I don't spend a lot of time on it. The gear's running all the time, but to finally write the Python code to automatically detect traces inside an image it's just taken me about 8 months to do. So I just wanted to share it with you. And this, so the TV station, by the way, and thanks Phil for putting it on there, comes out of Sault Ste. Marie in Ontario, Canada. It's one of the last analog TV stations that's on the air in North America. And so when they finally take it off the air, I'll have to use another signal source. But yep, so I just wanted to share that. So thanks a bunch.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you.
Excuse me, those earlier peaks, I can't read the small writing on the bottom, but like late July, is that the Aquarius?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, thanks for showing or saying that. Yeah, there are other little bit of blending on the previous meteor shower. So yeah, you do get you see lulls. You can see some people that do this have found meteors that are not designated, but they kind of see some shower activity or kind of out of cycle or out of season. Maybe it's a remnant of a comet or that pop up. So but yeah, you do, because of that time frame. Yeah, I'm seeing other meteor showers. I'm gonna let this run the fall, the good ones that are coming up here the next couple months. I'm gonna see what I capture and see how well it processes.
Thanks, Jim. That's great. Oh, Victor, you have your hand up? You're on mute.
Yeah. Is there a good way to understand why
Yeah, you have to unmute.
Is there a good way to understand why the meteors would peak at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning?
So if you think of it like driving a car, when we're coming into sunrise, we're heading down the highway. The meteors are coming at our windshield. During the day, like noon to 5, 6 o'clock, it's like they're in our back window. So when because we're going towards sunrise, we're like headlong. We're head into the rocks, basically.
I get it. Awesome.
Yeah, and then at nighttime, like kind of now, we're flipping the car around. Right about now is when it starts to transition over. So yeah, cool. Thanks,
Cheryl. Cheryl, you still there? I see you, but there you go.
I'm here.
This is one of my favorite pictures.
Thank you. This is a picture of from the Great Chamber, inside the Great Chamber, and it's outside of Kanab, overlooking the Johnson Wash, which is at the beginning of Escalante, just outside of Kanab, Utah. And it's a composite image. And the reason it's a composite image is because in order to, well, it was an adventure getting up here because it's very high on the top of a butte that you have to climb up. And I literally ended up having to crawl up. It was so steep and it was in sand, but we were in there all set up for taking star images inside the cave when all of a sudden rocks started falling down from the ceiling. So we decided to get it out of there very quickly. So the stars were tracked in the Airbnb that we were staying at just below this in the Johnson Wash area. So I composited it with my T6I was taken from in the cave during blue hour. And it was actually a handheld image, and that is Haley, which is my friend's girlfriend, who was our model. And then I tracked it from a Star Watcher Mini, and we did I did an 11-minute exposure on my Canon T6I, which is not modified. And it was a 32 ISO 18mm f2.8 for 11 minutes, single exposure tracked. And the air glow was so beautiful. It's just incredible. So that is my image from the Great Chamber.
Cheryl, did you say 32 ISO or 32,000?
3200.
3200, okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't say it properly.
That's beautiful. Stay there, Cheryl. The next one's yours too.
Okay. So this is Sagittarius that was also tracked from the backyard of the Airbnb. It's super dark skies there in the Johnson Wash. And this was tracked with my Canon EOS RA, which is astro modified. It's 24 images, each taken as a 3-minute exposure, ISO 800 f2.8 on at 135 millimeters. I'm learning PixInsight. It's very difficult for me, but this was successfully processed in PixInsight, and then I blended my star and starless in Photoshop.
Very nice. Thank you. Victor.
Yes, so I did not have to hike anywhere for this. I took this from my deck. All I had to do was walk out the back of my house in Ellicott City, Maryland. But because of the light pollution here, I used narrowband filters. And this is my first attempt at doing the Hubble palette, the SHO, sulfur, hydrogen, and oxygen 3. And so this is about 20 hours of data collected at the end of last month, a few weeks ago, and at least that many hours processing it in PixInsight to try to get the colors to come out. And then I added the stars. The stars are just from RGB filter. So yeah, this is my first narrowband filter.
I mean, it looks exactly like a Hubble photo.
Thanks.
Arjun, you have a question?
No, I remember Mr. Victor having a color camera. So did he get a monochrome one anytime recently?
That's an awesome question, Arjun. It's actually a color camera. So I bought filters from this company called HuTech. They have filters that they're dual band filters. They have one which is oxygen and hydrogen alpha, and then they have another filter that is oxygen and and sulfur. So they're narrow band. So I using the color camera, I capture the oxygen gets caught by the Bayer matrix elements that are green and blue. And the hydrogen gets caught by the Bayer matrix elements that are red. And the sulfur gets caught by the Bayer elements that are red. So I take a bunch of pictures with the one narrowband filter that has hydrogen and oxygen. I save those pictures. I take another set of pictures with the filter that has sulfur and oxygen. I save those pictures, and I pull out the reds and the greens and the blues, and I pull them out and map them to the sulfur, hydrogen, and oxygen. So it's an SHO image with a color camera.
Arjun, there's going to be a test at the end of this. So I hope you're taking notes.
But interesting process. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for asking that. And that's part of why it took so long to process, because I was learning how to do all that in PixInsight.
Great. Awesome. Daniel, are you on? I don't think so. Well, Daniel submitted this beautiful shot of the Milky Way. And here's a sketch. Richard, you're on, and you can talk about how you did it.
Well, mine is also a composite, but it's a lot less work than the photographies go through. This is a drawing, and it is a composite because the star field is done with a 13mm ethos, and I use that because it's a wide field of view, and it gives me the star colors. And two of the stars in this area are orange in color, which show real nice. But the real thing that I was going for was a globular cluster, NGC 6717. And for this, I used the Televue night device that we had been talking about earlier. And it provides me a lot more depth, and I could find the globular cluster, which was invisible with the 13mm ethos alone. And I drew that, and there's also star grouping IC 4802. And this is a small NGC 6717 is a small globular cluster, but it's one of the brighter polymer 9 globular clusters. And it's in Sagittarius, and it was just a drawing that I did at Carr's Mill or Alpha Ridge back not too long ago on 24th of August.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And there, Al, you see the result of your night vision device with the 13 ethos.
If it's still
Thank
on.
you. Thank you, Richard.
Sure.
Okay, so James, I don't think James Willingham's on. These next several are from James, who's a master planetary imager here. And so here's a combination shot of all his pictures that are following here. So I'll just step through these. James is probably out right now, getting ready to image again. So here's a Mars, and he did submit one of these. He just really does a great job of capturing the details and what's happening. Here's more from James. Here's another Jupiter shot. Oh, and that's mine. So those are James' pictures there. So here's some of my solar shots. This one up here, it has this very interesting filament that's in the shape of a circle there. And I did submit it to Sky and Telescope, and I saw that there was another one that was submitted with from Color Shot from somebody in Canada. There's another one that was submitted from Italy. This was done with a 60mm Lunt H-alpha scope. My primary eyepiece for viewing this is my 17.3 Delos, which is the best match, that and the 12mm Delos for viewing this, but it was really something to look at. There were some people that were out with me when we first saw this on a Saturday outside of Company 7. But it's really something. I still don't know what caused that feature or how it was formed, but I will be looking into it and try and find a scientist that can answer that picture. So that was a really cool feature.
How long did that last for, that circular one? Do you know?
So it rotated off the next day. So whether it was still holding together in that shape or not, I don't know. But as it rotated around, it became a prominence, and then it was gone. So
I suggest having a look at the APOD for maybe 13 September, or Alan Friedman up in Buffalo. And that may be the same circular structure that he has.
from 13 September. Wow, that's a month later. So
Or thereabouts, okay?
yeah, all right, that's great. I will do that. Thank you.
Hey, Phil, for that structure there, just to try to get an idea of scale, how large is that? I mean, can you put a couple of Earths in there? I mean,
Yeah,
just
so if you
give me
look
a
at right
size.
about here, or this sunspot here, and this area right here is about the size of the Earth.
Okay,
So it's gigantic.
yeah,
And what you could see is, you could see that it's actually rising from called the surface, but from the chromosphere here, you could see it looked like almost like a crater in the moon. So how high up that is very difficult to guess. It's easier to kind of do the math and see how far this prominence is off the edge. But but this could be behind the sun coming all the way up, so it could be much larger than what we see. But there is a rise here, and it's really something. Did you see what filaments normally kind of look like? And so, I have some from the previous cycle where they were just huge, like these will happen here. But this circular feature is unique, and I've been doing this since 2012. So I have never seen something like that before.
I looked, it was a September 13th APOD,
Okay.
and that would fit in with a 27-day rotation.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah, may I share for just a second?
Yeah, hang on, I got to set that up here. Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
So here's a new version of Safari unknown.
Hey, Phil, while he's doing that, was that H alpha or was that calcium K?
H alpha.
H alpha. Okay, thanks.
I just shared it.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, so
Alan does this from his backyard in Buffalo, New York.
yeah, that was great. So you could see that that the go back here a second. You could see that when you showed that this area up here, which is a little open, was way open relative to what this is in this one here. So there's a change there, but it's amazing that it held that long, and then definitely want to learn more about it. But it's cool. It's one of my coolest captures I've ever been fortunate enough to get. I'm working with a color camera now for the first time, and I'm having my challenges with processing the color images that I don't have with the monochrome. So I'll be reaching out to a few people moving forward, but I'm still experimenting there. And so this is a September 9th capture. This one's a little higher resolution though than my monochrome. And you could see I was able to capture this double loop prominence right here. And you could see other filaments. So there's a lot of activity. It was interesting though, there was no sunspots in this one. Arjuna, you have a question?
What camera are you using?
This is this for the color one?
Yeah.
What is it? The ZWO
294.
ASI 294 Pro color one.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. And then here's one I got out at StarQuest out in Green Bank. It was the blackest skies that I've ever been a part of at this particular event this time. And I was able to capture the Ring Nebula there. And that's auto stacking using SharpCap and processing in Photoshop with Lightroom, and that's it.
How long? You think
There was about 20 minutes worth of 15-second or 20-second exposures. So it really came out very nice with very little effort relative to what many of you do, especially to Victor's 20 hours of capture time and 40 hours of processing time.
Hey,
Right?
Phil,
Yeah.
you might want to update your image, so you've got it marked as Alpha Ridge Park.
Oh, you know what? I take that back. This was taken at Alpha Ridge, and you were there that night. That's not the Green Bank picture. Green Bank was a different one. This is the Alpha Ridge picture. So this isn't even in the dark skies. This was that night when you and I were out till 3 o'clock in the morning. You're right. That's right. So that's even more impressive for me. And then that night we were out too, this is a 1 hour total time of about 18 seconds exposures of Pleiades. And once again, I was live stacking with SharpCap, and I was hoping to grab some of the nebulosity was my objective there. And we were wondering if it was going to happen without doing flat fields and dark frames and all that other stuff. And I was able to pull it out with a lot of processing and in Lightroom Classic and pull it together. So for me, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out.
Live processing?
No, Lightroom. Yeah, Lightroom, Photoshop Lightroom.
Oh.
Adobe Lightroom, I should say. Yeah. And then Jim Johnson, I don't think Jim's on, but Jim sent in this beautiful picture of this feature on the moon here. He just does some great work with this. Very cool. And he was using his 12-inch f8 Meade with a 2.5 power mate. 2.5 times power mate. And here's a really cool shot by Ken. Ken is Everhart. I don't think Ken's on either today. He's probably working. But this was a very cool shot he got when we were at Green Bank. He was set up right next to me in his campsite. And here's a great shot of the bubble nebula. And Ian, you're up.
Yeah, this took this from West Virginia with a 20-inch Dob and the next image 5 camera, and you know the label shows the processing. The seeing was really pretty good that night, and so that's Saturn.
Very nice. That's
and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nope, this is your.
Yeah, this is Jupiter on the 24th of August with a 2x power mate and the same camera. I'm finding that if you have a lot of frames, it's not as grainy as when there's less frames. And that's also IO. I think I forgot to put it in on the bottom right.
Very nice. And that's it. So I want to thank all of you for joining. We're kind of right on time here. And so at this point, I'll officially conclude the meeting. I'm going to stop the recording. And then if you want to stay on and keep chatting for a little while, that's great. So hold on. The meeting is officially over. And once again, thank you, Al, for joining us with a great presentation.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you all for your questions and your interest. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys,
Thank you.
We go see you on Saturday.